Welcome to Kim Talks Resilience, where we share stories of insight and inspiration in life, love, and business with resilient women from around the world. Speaking with authors, entrepreneurs, founders, and coaches to learn their strategies for a more resilient life so we can all build the life we love. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. Alrighty. Welcome back. Thankful that you were taking time today because I know that time is our most precious resource. And I'm excited to get into our conversation with our guest today because it seems to me that everything she's doing comes down to embracing that resource. For those of you who have been following me over the last few years, you'll know that I've been on this journey myself. So I find this conversation is going to be super interesting. In moving from that 6 to 7 figure space and reclaiming my life. As a 55-year-old woman, I started raising first my mother's children when I was very young, and then moving into having children of my own very young. And let's put it this way. I shouldn't have told you how old I was. I should have let you guess it. But I have grandchildren, and I'm sitting here going, okay, I know I have transferable skill sets. And I can capitalize on those because I have incredible life experiences. So how do I start regaining my freedom? How do I live the next half of my life the way I want to live? And so I'm going to do a deep dive. I'm hoping that I'm asking all the questions of Franceska that you would ask. And I promise, again, everything's going to be in the show notes so you can track her down and get more from her. Okay. So Franceska McCaughan is an empowerment coach, business mentor, and an author who sheds light on surviving childhood trauma and creating the life that you desire through personal development, no matter your past or present. Franceska serves driven women creatives to become the $1 million version of themselves in order to impact and create and hold millions in their life. Franceska loves traveling the globe with her husband and creating the life-changing retreats from Kenya to Paris to Botswana. Well, I can find out more on that. Franceska also finds joy with her 3 rescue Siamese cats from Houston to Dubai, creating inspire floral. She also loves doing this. This is cool. And we're going to ask her about this, creating inspiring floral bouquets. And this is a remnant from her floral design days and founding the Hotel Florist. So we're going to ask about that. And slowing down to appreciate a freedom-based lifestyle. And that's what I'm looking for, Franceska. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm like, wow, this is going to be such a good show.
We're going to have fun. My goal in this show is to give at least one tip, strategy, or insight that we can all use, including me, folks. I'm on a journey just like every other woman out there. I've been able to grow from, and I want to put a shout out. Sarah Bankin is a gal I know out of Phoenix, Arizona. She's an amazing woman. And she started this, you would love her. She started a book called The No Book. And I was the ambassador of The No Book when the pandemic hit. And in 2019, I didn't know how to do anything I'm doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's amazing how powerful we are.
Yeah, exactly. So anybody who looks at my tech skills and how I'm able to move through things and do things, I didn't know how to do any of that. So, and Sarah was as gracious as she could be during the pandemic, trying to teach me and get me to even understand Google Docs. I wasn't as successful at that time doing that, but perseverance and time brings rewards. So, Franceska, I wish I had met you before the pandemic, but I'm so glad I'm
here
meeting
now.
you now. Awesome. I'm excited. So before we dive into what you do, because that's what everybody wants to know is, Franceska, how do I make 7 figures and live a life I love? Tell us where you're dialing in from and a little bit about who you are and how you got on this journey.
Oh, okay. I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible. So I am tuning in from Germany, and I am actively living a lifestyle that I love. For the past few years, I've been going between the US and Europe. And recently, I decided to make Europe my home base. That's the beauty of really being able to create a life of your desires. It's like not having an alarm clock, not having to clock in somewhere, and always being very tuned in to how you're feeling. So if you're feeling moments of like frustration or bitterness or anger, these are beautiful red flags, basically saying, hey, you need to get back in your lane. This is not for you. This doesn't have to be the way you get to do things. And we are always co creating the life that we're living by every single decision that we make. So I wasn't always coming from a place of alignment like this, definitely not. My way of coping with unresolved childhood trauma was really chasing the fat bank account, was really looking for my next gold star. How could I burn out even faster this time to keep all the oohs and ahs coming? And I find that as children of childhood trauma, we are innately ingrained to push off the bottom of the swimming pool. So we're always looking for that moment of like diving in deep and then pushing back off and floating to the top. And we are always searching for that feeling. And it's not sustainable. It definitely, as you continue to grow and you enter your 30s and your 40s and your 50s, and you're dealing with like starting your own family or starting a business or getting to a midlife place and going, what the hell am I even doing here? And so for me, this journey that I have been on to create this lifestyle I love started in 2020. You mentioned the pandemic. I had built a very successful floral design company and worked with the best in the business. And I found myself sitting in my closet going, who am I without all the pretty billboards? Like, am I a funny person? Would people want to be my friend? What if I don't have as much money in the bank account anymore? And it was like fundamental questions I couldn't answer. And so that is really what was my beginning personal development journey. And it's been 4 years in the making.
So I have a couple things I wanna ask about, but I do wanna point out, you just said something sitting in your closet, and I want every woman who ever hears this to know I have been there myself. I don't know, there's something about the safety and security of being able to hide from everything and sit in there, and we all get there, but it's when you crawl back out and you stand up and you brush your knees off and you say, "Okay." Um, Before we dive into your practice and how you help women, you said something that really kind of resonated. I am the eldest of 4 girls, also from a very significant childhood trauma. So, we have this very interesting spectrum of productivity or lifestyles within the 4 girls. Um, Pushing off from the bottom. Do you find that people who have come through a significant childhood trauma maybe are looking for quick fixes or immediate rewards, and they shy away from when they hit a sharp object, or they don't stick with it as long as, kind of Napoleon Hill, 3 feet from gold? Can you explain that pushing off from the bottom just a little bit more? Because I really found that fascinating.
Yeah, it's kind of like this dopamine hit that we look for as survivors, that like we put ourselves under tremendous stress. And this isn't all survivors. I find that, if we had to become very general, you fall in two camps. You fall into one camp, which is nobody cares about me. It doesn't really matter what I do with my life. You get kind of sloppy. You probably make pretty poor decisions and you repeat the cycle. And there's a lot of blame and there's a lot of victimhood in that. The other side of the camp is that you become an overachiever and you spend your entire life trying to prove your self worth. And you look for that in validation. And how do you continue to keep validation coming? Well, you keep achieving the impossible, because let's be honest, the fact that you're probably still here for a lot of people, even the concept is impossible. So when we have trained our nervous system to always look for that moment of where we can push from the bottom and basically push back to the top and prove to ourselves that like we've got this, we can win, it is that really unhealthy dopamine hit that we're constantly looking to validate self-worth.
And it's exhausting. So I would say I'm number 2. and
I was
and
too.
that's and I would say that until honestly the pandemic really shifted my mindset. First of all, it gave me time to start learning things because I realized how I was failing when I have amazing women in my sphere and I fail them because I was kind of bluffing my way through something or I didn't understand something and I didn't know how to ask for it. The pandemic was in for me. Yes, it was hard financially. We had some things happen, but for me, it was a huge kick in the pants to take time, step back, and acknowledge what I don't know so I can start growing into the space that I need to be in, where people need me to be in, right?
Mm,
So
mm.
so I love this. You are like I'm so grateful that you're here because I'm really resonating with what you're sharing. So let's go into what you do. How do you work with women to shift them? And okay, so we have to throw out a stat so people know what the stats are, what we're fighting against, what we're moving people against. It's like salmon swimming uphill, upstream, right? The reality is the average coach in North America makes $70,000 a year or $76,000 a year. I know it's less than 100. And once you take out your cost of operations, you end up paying yourself around 40K. And a lot are working 40, 50, 60 hours a week for that $40,000. Um, so really they're actually working 40, 50, 60,000 a week on a hobby versus a career, right? So am I saying that correctly? Like, is that kind of the
Yeah.
stats that you have?
I think that's one way to look at it. I think that oftentimes if we tie our success to a metric like that, it can really be discouraging. I think that there's so many factors at play. I think, a lot of people get into this and they need time, like any skill, to become really good at it.
Yeah.
And also, let's not forget that the coaching industry is probably the only industry where you are constantly becoming a better version of yourself. And you cannot put time on healing previous parts of you that you weren't even aware were driving you from a subconscious level. And so I think really the reframe is, if a lot of us know we're meant to be coaches and healers because we've been doing this our entire life. I mean, even as a child, I was my mother's coach. And so you'll feel it. You'll know, like, this is for me. I want to help people because you've helped yourself. And once you can detach the amount of income tied to a certain time frame as freedom in that, because then you're able to pivot. Then you're able to get really clear on who you want to help. You're able to solve as an entrepreneur. Maybe you started out as a business coach and you hated how masculine it was, and you actually recently rescued your marriage and you'd much rather sit in your feminine and help other women like reclaim their marriage. So I think we have to really look at these statistics with a grain of salt.
Okay.
If we want to make them mean something, we totally can, but it's not required for your success.
I think where I was, and I agree. I agree 100%. I think where I was coming from is understanding that you're not failing if you're in that space, that you are
Hmm.
literally have a place to launch from, right?
Yeah.
And that there's room for growth. And I completely agree on everything you said because, like I said, we're right now projecting into that seven figure, but it's taken me 3 years to get there. And I've had to pivot and move all along. So let's walk through what Franceska does. So the name of your program, first I want to bring this up because this is a great name. This is your company name is super awesome. So I want to just
Thank
bring this
you.
up. Tell us how you came up with the goddess millionaires as your tag.
Yes. So I'm going to go back to the closet. Okay. So we're there in
Excellent.
2020. We're in the closet. And at first, I was seeing so many women that were no longer in their corporate jobs, like incredible pastry chefs and incredible lawyers. And they always wanted to start their own business. So I started a program called the Lifestyle You Love Business System. And my whole goal was to help corporate women transition into an entrepreneurial role and build 6 and 7 figure companies. That's what I had done. That was my experience. And at the time, I had a business coach because I had to learn how to create an online course. I'd never done that before. You asked me to install a hotel lobby, I got you. You asked me to start an online course, I have no idea. So I invested in myself. And at the time, she said, everyone does that. Everyone does business coaching, but you actually have a really unique selling point in the sense that you know how to create consistent income, especially in a floral industry where everyone's depending on unstable weddings and events. Hello, COVID, that stripped everybody. I did still have hotel accounts. And she's like, I think you need to help florists create consistent income without unstable weddings and events. And at the time, it felt very unsexy, but I dove in and quickly saw there was a demand for it. And that's how the hotel florist was pivoted, because originally it was a consulting arm of my floral design business to offer turnkey floral solutions for luxury hotels and help them with brand standards. And so it turned into an education platform. And that is where I quickly realized that I did not have the bandwidth to hold other women who were struggling with things I was struggling with. And that's when it really came clear to me that I was getting triggered by what they were triggered by. And that's when I was like, I have to figure out who I am first. And this is when I led myself into personal development. It started with human design. I'm a huge component of human design because I think it teaches you so much about who you originally came here to be versus who you were told to be. And as I went through my evolution with human design and I really started doing my healing journey, I was able to start writing the book. I had this avatar land, and her name was Goddess Millionaires. And I'll never forget, my husband and I, we had built a tiny home out of a cargo trailer, and we're traveling the US for 7 months. I was learning how to launch this online business. We're learning how to camp basically full time. And in the front seat of the truck one day, I looked at my husband and I said, "You're going to laugh at me, but I have to tell you a secret." And I had been holding on to this for like almost a week. And he's like, "What is it?" And I said, "I think I'm going to start calling myself, or I'm going to start doing things for myself for my alter ego, Goddess Millionaires. Isn't that the most crazy thing you've ever heard of?" And I'm so fortunate that I have a really supportive partner. And he was like, "That makes total sense." So, where did this avatar land from? Well, for me, it is the direct correlation between a masculine and a feminine energy. So the goddess is the feminine, the millionaires is the masculine. I also love the fact that a lot of times, especially women who come from, whether it's really traumatic childhoods or maybe it's impoverished childhoods, we all come with like significant money DNA, significant money mindset that's driving actually our lives and what we get to reap and receive and what we feel worthy of receiving. So this whole idea of calling myself a millionaires for the child that used a chamber pot as a toilet because we didn't have running water was asinine.
Hold on. So we lost connection. So we're going to go back to we are at 1829. So we lost connection for the, you go back to, you had just started saying,
Shoot.
we built a tunnel out of the cargo trailer. Okay. And we're
Okay.
traveling. So if you could start from there, I'm going to have the guys edit that.
Thank you.
No. This is, I do like, I do probably 20 interviews a week because I hire out for other companies. So I do B2B interviews. So don't worry, I'm used to this. I gotcha. All right. So we're
Okay.
going to go back to the cargo trailer that you converted a tiny home, and now you're traveling. So just start with cargo trailer.
So my husband and I, we converted this cargo trailer and we're traveling the US and we're really learning how to, live on the road while we're launching these new companies. And I just felt completely stressed. I was having anxiety attacks. Everything was out of my control. And all of a sudden I just had this idea of like, what if I was a different person? What if I was truly the person that I would love to be, that I've been dreaming about since I was little. And all of a sudden, I had this idea of like, I would call her Goddess Millionaires. And so Goddess Millionaires landed, and I felt so silly even having this idea because it was like almost just a direct juxtaposition to my life. You know, I was a child that grew up without running water. I used a chamber pot as a bathroom, like millionaires, like we could barely afford food. But for me, it represented what was possible. It represented masculine and feminine energetic. How could I be the goddess and the millionaires? How could I reclaim the future that I want to have for myself? And so everything I did from that moment onwards was through the vision of Goddess Millionaires. What does Goddess Millionaires eat? How does she eat? How does she speak to someone when she's upset? What kind of clothes does she wear? How important is it to her about sustainability or equality? And every single question I'd ask myself, it was no longer from the perspective of like where I am right now, AKA in the front of this truck, dragging this cargo trailer around the US, which in itself was an incredible experience. But it was through the lens of who am I becoming? I am already that person. And that you'll hear me oftentimes say, your dreams that you're having about yourself or your life or your one days, those are just simply memories from the future. And once you can really anchor that in, you just ask yourself, who do I need to become in order to be an energetic match to that life? And for me, that was Goddess Millionaires.
That is awesome. That I love that. Those are dreams from the future.
Memories from the future. They've already
Memories
happened.
from the future. I that, that is actually like a workshop. What are your memories from the future? I That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So how tell us, what is the structure of your company? So a couple questions that come to mind for me is, we're we know that there is the hard work creating the systems and understanding the platforms and how to do all this, because technology is not intuitive for a lot of people. So you have tech intuitives and tech taught, right? So when we look at this, we look at systems, we look at service, and then we look at sales. What do you think is your superpower in guiding your clients to their true fulfillment of all that they can do? What do you think is your superpower in there? Hard question, I know. I
I
like to
think
ask
it's
hard
all
questions.
I think it's
All of
all
them?
3 because, I'm gonna go back to human design. Human design will teach you everything that you need to know about yourself. And for myself, for anyone that's listening that's familiar with human design, it's essentially there's 5 different energy types, and it's who your soul came here to be before you were told what to do. And this is the deconditioning that now we live with as where our human is having this experience in this vehicle, this vessel that we've chosen for ourselves. And for me, knowing that I am a projector, so I am like queen of efficiency, I'm queen of systems, I'm queen of structure. Like I love that stuff because you give me an 8-hour workday, I'll show you how to do it in 2. I took a 6-day-a-week floral design business and I brought it down to 1 to 2 days and was still making multiple 6 figures, bringing home 6 figures cash. So it's for me, I love that service. I'm super service oriented. As a projector, I see the collective. I see what's happening in the collective. I see where people are getting stuck. I can see people's gold. There's this saying how sometimes we're so close to our gold, we cannot see it. And then the sales portion is like if you're selling in a way that's in alignment to you, meaning you don't come at it with bitterness, you don't feel sneaky, you don't struggle with it, but you truly come at sales from a place of like empowerment. And I get to do this work and I get to make people's lives better. Like I was just speaking to a client yesterday and she was in tears talking about how this potential new client she's signing, how it would change her life. It would change her family's life. I've had clients come in almost losing their business and turning around and making multiple millions in their business. And they're like, can I please fly you out and share you with my team on why they all have full-time salaried roles now? So for me, all 3 of those components are so incredibly important to me because I had to do them for myself first. And now it is an honor to walk, especially with other women, and help them do the same.
Amazing. So walk us through your company. I come to you. So give me let's build an avatar. Who is the average? Meaning that this is not you specifically out there who's listening or watching, but we're going to create an average avatar. Let's. put her at what's your average age? We took your high and your low. What's your average age?
I Oh, that's a good question. I can tell you I'm strong in the demographic between mid-30s and mid-50s. So
Okay,
I have
perfect.
the people mid-30s coming in saying, "You know what? I've got this, but I think I could do it better." Or I've really landed something, like I've built a business that I really love and we're doing great, but I know I'm standing in my way. Or I feel really successful in my professional life, but in my personal life, I'm really struggling with boundaries around a toxic family member. And it's really dragging me down at work, or it's really dragging me down in how I show up in my marriage. I'm looking for becoming a better version of myself. This person in their mid 30s, they're looking to be the best version of themselves before they go on to the next thing. The clients more so in their mid 40s, but especially in their mid 50s, are looking to go all in. They're like, I did all the things I thought I should do. I've become a master at those, but I'm bored. It's not what I want to do. I don't have, I've already gone through half of my life. I'm ready to go all in. And, there's one particular client I think of right now. She's in her mid 50s. She's gone on every single retreat with me. She's going to be in Botswana with me in July. And she left a 27-year sales career selling rubber, like rubber parts, rubber, yeah, anything you has to do with rubber, basically. And she was like,
Tires.
yeah, yeah. She was like, it paid well, but I was so unhappy. And I just want to do this thing that makes me so happy. But I don't want to do it alone. So I also find the people that are in their mid 50s, they're like willing to invest. They've watched and they typically make investments, whether it's in my programs or with me personally, because they want to. It like literally pisses them off to not do it, to not join something, because they're like, I don't know why I wouldn't. Like, I just want to be all in. And that's, I'd find, like, wherever you're at right now in your life, if you know that you've achieved incredible things and you have so much more in you, but it's just like, I just kind of want a friend to do that with. I want someone that I can just like sit with and they tell me all the areas that I'm missing or I could be expanding and I don't have to do it alone. These are my people.
And having that guide that can do gap analysis, and I think that's where a lot of us struggle, is understanding where are the gaps. And the gaps show up in no matter what career you have. It's the same thing over and over, right? So it's like, how do we solve that so we don't run into the same roadblocks this time around? When let's go through an exercise, and I do understand that Gen Xer, because that Gen Xer is I think the millennials and the Gen Zs have had the opportunity to learn kind of that self-sufficiency within their space, whereas the Gen Xers and the boomers, we've all worked in collectives. So
Mhm.
having that, it's like, I know I cannot go next level without having a partner in this. And that's really what it is. And you don't want to take I think the biggest challenge is that when you're building something, you feel like you're in a silo and you don't want to take it to your partner, because your partner will say, well, then why are you doing this? Right. Because a lot of times those partners don't understand that just set up one email in an email workflow literally takes 7 layers of scheduling, right? So they don't understand the systems that you're working in, because they have a logic to them, but the partner, the sister, the mother, whoever doesn't understand what that is. They just go, "Oh, but didn't you say last month that this is gonna be better? What about the month before?" Right? So it's really a challenge, when you feel like you're on your own. So I think that's the greatest gift that you offer, is that I'll walk beside you.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah, it's
that's
an honor to walk the journey with you. It really
uh,
is.
I can absolutely, and I see that in how you're presenting. So I want, if you could share one tip or one strategy that you have found that's been somewhat unilaterally helpful, no matter the generation. Are you able to do that? Because I know I'm putting you on the
Yeah.
spot. And folks, I
Yeah,
did not,
absolutely.
and just so you know, whatever you hear out of Francesca's mouth is off the top of her head, man. It is all the way soul deep, because
Oh, yeah.
I do not give questions before the show. I do not. I see how well they know their stuff. So, Francesca, not to put you on the hot seat, but I'm putting you on the hot seat. Can you give us one actionable strategy, tip, or insight that is somewhat universal with all of the women that come to you, all the people who are looking for a shift?
Yeah. I'm going to give you two. So, the first one, I'm going to go back to human design. So, before I work with any of my clients, we first look into their human design. And this is so easy to do. There's a free app out there. It's literally called My Human Design. If you're curious, for whoever's listening, you type in your birthday, it's based on your natal chart. So, it's like, where were you born, at what time, on what date? And this gives me the information of what is your energy type. And the reason why this is important is because there's non-energy beings and there's energy beings. And if we think about who the energy beings are in the world, they make up 70% of the population. Whereas the non-energy beings make up 30%, but out of that there's three different energy types. One is like a 17%, one is a 7%, and whatever the math is after that, it's like 1 to 2%. So it is very important. Like, before I'm working with anyone, I don't really care what your history is. I don't really care what you're doing yet. I care who you are at your core, because my job is to remind you of that as you are continuing to build your future. Because how many of us have like built something based on someone else's why, based on someone else's belief, and then we turn around and we're not satisfied, or we actually secretly hate it and we want it to go away. And I often say, like, I built myself a golden cage. So the first thing I'm going to look at is your human design. I'm going to look at how you operate, how much energy you have, what is in alignment for you, what is not in alignment for you, how you best make decisions. Like, these things are incredibly important. And I'll never forget when I first started looking into my human design, like in 2020, I was like, great, projector, that sounds super boring, I'm not into that, that's dumb. And then 2 years later, I was like, let me go back to this human design thing, because that feels like the only thing that's super tangible, and I love tangible things. I love frameworks, I love systems. So I go back to it, and it's unlike, the enneagrams and the profiles. It's at a soul level. And when I started really investing in human design, I hired my own one-on-one coach. One of the first things she told me was that basically I was doing way too much and I needed to carve out more time for fun and play. And for someone who at the time was an extreme overachiever, it was all about working the longest and being the best. I just thought, well, this is just a load. This is a load of BS. Like, this is ridiculous. But as I have dismantled my life and created so much more space and freedom and really learned how I best make decisions, my business took off in a way that I could have never forced it to take off, no matter how many funnels I did or how many emails I sent or how many lives I forced myself to go on. Like, that's not where the success is. Like, we're all built in a different way for our ultimate success. So the first step I make, which is universal across the board, is I look at your human design. I look at who you are always meant to be. And I look at what are the areas that we need to decondition. And then the second thing I look at is, what is really bringing you joy? What is it that you really want to create? What are your beliefs around what you can and cannot have? And a lot of times this starts with like a simple diagram where we look at areas of your life where you're satisfied. Maybe it's the quality of sleep you're getting. Maybe it's the amount of money in your bank account. Maybe it's the amount of debt you have. Maybe it's the amount of clients that you currently have in your business. Maybe it's your career. Maybe it's your marriage. Like, whatever is really important to you right now, we're going to look at how satisfied are you with these areas? What are your beliefs around these areas? What do you believe gets to be true for you? And can that be proven in a court of law? So now we're starting to get more into deconstructing your mindset and deconstructing kind of the tools you came in with, because the version you are today can only get you so far. And if we are aspiring to have the greatest relationship of our life, or aspiring to have the greatest love affair of our life, or aspiring to have a seven-figure business, like, who are we when we look back in hindsight of building this thing? We don't just one day push off from the bottom of the pool and have the seven-figure business. Like, who were we when we decided that we were a millionaire in the making? Who were we when we decided that we were going to look back and have the greatest marriage of all time? Who was that person? And I think that those are the two ways that I really help clients when they come into my world, is looking at who their soul came here to be, and understanding what they believe gets to be true for them, and then aligning that with the goal of who they're becoming in the future.
Wow. That I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot, especially for people who have come through significant childhood trauma or, displacement or those, food scarcity, shelter scarcities, right? And what I come across a lot is a lot of people who are still doing the blame thing. They they're activated, right? So I think getting to that core source and figuring out moving beyond blaming everybody else and everything else and being able to find your inner strengths
Mhm.
will soothe because I think the world itself is somewhat activated right now.
Yeah, that's a one way to say it.
I'm gonna say that nicely. It's like, and I think the only way we can start relieving some of the crazy that's going on right now is when we take a true inner scope, like what you're talking about, and really get absolute clarity, then we're able to become truthful to ourselves and identify where are we creating this activation in our
Mhm.
space. And when as soon as we get that, we're able to actually understand it, remove it, and start moving forward. But you have to understand what you're working with. I love that. I love the fact that you're going back at like that core level. I remember waking up at like 27 years of age. That's a long time ago, guys. And I remember waking up and this was one of these moments in my life because I was exhausted. I lived in such a high trauma experience that for the first 13 years of my life, I never really slept. So I was a
Mhm.
very lucid color, like I could move my dreams because I was never truly in a deep REM state, right? And then I spent the next 10 years of my life just trying to get stable, right? And then I started sleeping again. And I remember waking up feeling refreshed at 27. And I wish I had and I shouldn't say that. So I'm glad that I've had this opportunity to talk with you, Francesca, because I am hoping that if you are 27, 28, 30 years old and you're feeling exactly what I'm about to express, that you reach out to Francesca so you can jumpstart, you can jump the hoops. So you're not 50 and just discovering this, right? But I remember
Mhm.
waking up at 27 for the first time and feeling actually awake for the very first time in my life. It was just such a weird experience. And and I said, I know why I'm here. I know why I'm here. And it was this, and yet I spent the next 20 years of my life trying to validate that I deserved what I thought I should be doing because I'm here.
Mhm.
And I was in my mid 40s before I said, you know what? I put in enough time. I'm going to start doing what I love. And if somebody doesn't like it, change the channel, turn it off. I don't care. This is why I'm here. So, I mean, does that sound, does that what I'm speaking about?
Yeah, and I think it's really hard for, anyone listening that feels this pull to really look inward. Like for me, I was definitely the persecutor in my relationship. I was definitely the finger pointer. It was other people's, the reason why I couldn't have the life I wanted to have was because of them. And I almost had this arrogance and entitlement to me, but it was just another way of coping with all the way that my book editors called it. She said you had a really messy baton handoff. And I thought that that was just the perfect way to summarize my parents. But once I was able to kind of take ownership for my life, and part of us, when we do this, we're scared how it's going to alienate people around us, how they're going to handle the new us. Like, well, you're different, you seem different. It's reminding ourselves that we have to go first. So if you're ever struggling with something, someone's not doing something or they're not responding to you in the way you want to be responded to, you have to go first. And I think this is a part of the ego that we have to remind, like, because the ego is only here to keep our brain safe. But it's like we can reassure the ego that we don't have to be right. A life being right all the time is a very lonely life. But if we can remind ourselves that we're going to go first, we can do hard things, we're going to lead ourselves no matter what. And the people that are meant to be on this journey with us, our kids, our partners, our family members, they're going to be there. They might not be walking side to side the entire time. They might drop back a bit. They might sit down on a bench. You're going to keep walking, but you also have to trust in them, because what happens a lot of times when we go first is all of a sudden we become the gurus. But it's just another version of the finger pointing. Well, you're not doing this. You're not journaling. You're not meditating. You're not listening to podcasts. You're not investing in
Yeah.
your personal development. It's about you. And when you go first, you give people the permission to also go first in their life. And I can tell you that the people that fell behind were the people that needed to fall behind. And the people that were still walking with me to this day, we have the best relationship that we've ever had. But it started with me going first.
Wow. I You are such a breath of fresh air. I am
Thank you.
so enjoying this conversation. And like I said, if you're out there and you're just like a little lost, but super smart, super cool, super motivated, you've done lots of cool things. Well, I will tell you, there is a world of people that feel lost right now, and they need to hear from you. So if you have an expertise, but you don't know where to start, absolutely. You would make a great friend. So,
Thank
let's
you.
now we're going to dig into the hard part. I would love for you to share a time either through your business development. It could be back to the COVID pantry. It could be back to childhood, whatever you feel comfortable in sharing. Share a point that without grit, without resilience, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. And how did you move through that?
I'll give a relatively recent one. So I wanted to become the first millionaire in my family. Again, to give you context, like I grew up without running water, food was very scarce. I went into the foster care system. The first family, they went bankrupt over not being able to make car payments. And the second family, they went bankrupt because the father figure had a drug addiction. So I did not grow up around money. I did not really see money. I wouldn't say that I really necessarily idolized money. I knew that education would set me free, because I feel like education is the one thing that we all have access to. Some of us might have to work harder. Like I had to get full ride scholarships. Therefore, I had to make sure I passed my test. But education at least puts you in the room with people that can change your life. And that's what happened for me. But I knew that money would set me free. And I had this idea that the bigger my bank account got, then the more free I would become. And that's not exactly how it worked. But I was on this mission of becoming the first millionaire in my family and became kind of obsessed with the idea of it, because there, again, like it, until we heal the pattern, it shows up in other ways. So I was tying my self-worth around, the money, again, just in a different with a different bow. And I found that when I made that declaration of becoming a millionaire is also when I started this really fast downhill journey of losing it all financially. And I've always been a very financial savvy person. I'm very self-made. Like since the age of 12, I've basically been financially supporting myself. I had always been debt free. But there was something about the moment I just claimed I was going to be this self-made millionaire, I all of a sudden started spending like crazy. I felt like I had lost everything. Bad investments happened. Businesses didn't take off, like whatever. I found myself on the flip side. And I'm lucky enough to have put myself in a room with several self-made, multi 7, 8 figure earners to realize that for a lot of us, when we are healing this generational trauma, especially around money, especially around women, we need to know that we can hold the flip side, or that will always be here looming over our head and controlling our relationship with money, this fear of losing it all. So I really did. I lost it all. I had 4 cents in my bank account. And I was late on payments. I didn't know how I was going to make payments. I was putting rent on credit cards. I'd maxed out credit cards. This is definitely not something I'm like super proud of, but at the same time, it had to happen because when I got to the point 4 cents in my bank account, and I did not know how I was even going to go to the store and buy food, and was really struggling mentally in that moment, the grittiness, I asked myself, and how can I still be committed no matter what? How can I not make this mean anything about my success or who I am as a person? How can I be committed even more? What would I do in this moment if I had millions of dollars in the bank? And you'll be surprised. It'll be really simple things like, I don't need to set an alarm, or I can go for a longer walk, or I'm going to call my friend, or you know what, I'm going to make a new dish out of my fridge with like whatever food I have left. Like you get to romanticize your life and all the things that we think are going to bring us joy and satisfaction that are on the other side of this hypothetical number. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's just another way to keep your deepest desires arm's length away. And so in that moment, when I decided, I was like, how can I be committed no matter what? How can I not make this mean anything? Is when I saw everything take off. And it was like grateful for every dollar that came through and grateful for almost hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt being paid off and being committed even more to my mission and showing up even more authentically and genuinely wanting to help people. But I had to dismantle the fear of losing it all in order to actually hold it all. So, for anyone listening, that you feel like you had a big dream and a big part of your identity and you went after it, and for whatever reason, it was looking like it was not working. In fact, you were failing. And it was so humiliating because it was either on a public stage or you didn't even dare to bring your friends into it, or you didn't know how you were going to claw back out. I just want you to remember, even in that moment, you can still be in your power. You can still ask yourself, like, how can I be committed no matter what? Because I'm telling you, if you can hold the flip side of all things, it is so much easier to receive what it is that you're truly calling in, because you no longer have that fear that it's not possible for you. You're like, well, if I can have 4 cents in my bank account, I don't understand why I can't have billions of dollars in my bank account. Like, it's still a bank account. There's still numbers on a screen. It means nothing about my life. It means nothing about my health. It means nothing about the quality of my relationships. It is simply an energetic match. And once we can dismantle these fears, we're able to hold so much more.
Wow. And right now, there's a lot of people going through these and they are questioning their value. I'm licensed in real estate since 1999. I have not been an active frontline real estate agent for almost a decade now, since I started in television and things like that. But I remember a saying that they always say, you're only as good as your last sale. And that is literally counterintuitive to being
Yeah.
able to, that's wow. Well, I'm grateful that you shared that story, because there's a lot of great people. Walt Disney went bankrupt. Walt Disney lost his very first characters to a he was working as a advertising graphics person in Kansas City. And when he went bankrupt, he lost his first set of characters. And he almost went bankrupt a second time in California, almost lost Mickey. And
Mhm.
yet he kept going. And had he not seen that vision of having the dreams of the future memories, right? I mean, the world would be a much different place.
For
So
sure.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because there's a lot of shame around money. And I think there's a lot more things out there that are shameful. I think there's a lot more things out there. Have you seen some of the 80s fashions? Come on, folks. Flock of seagull hair. I did it. So I want to bring up your book. I want to know, what can the readers expect from it? And tell us a little bit about your journey, because individual books are still less than 6% of adults in North America will publish a individual book, right? So
Wow.
this is a very small group of individuals. Tell us a little bit about your journey of publishing this book, and what can the readers expect from it?
So again, in the middle of my personal development journey, I felt like I had quote unquote mastered myself, and I wanted to really go and help women. And I felt this very loud message from the universe. I'm very tapped into source. It has been my guiding light my entire life, but especially my intuition. And it was, you don't need to do that. You need to write your book. And I know I've wanted to write a book ever since I was little, and I went through the things that I went through. And I just, again, memories from the future. If you ever need proof, look back on how much you've accomplished in your life and remember that that was once a dream. So I just thought, well, not right now. Like, I'm not old enough to write a book now. I'm not ready to write a book. And it was just very clear to write a book. And you'll find that when you really listen to yourself, a lot of times we don't want to, because we don't want to do the part that comes next, because we don't really know. And new things are hard because they're new, not because they're hard. And so I found myself in a self-publishing course. And then I found my editor from this course. And then I just thought I would have this book written in 3 months, which is absolutely hilarious. If that gives you any idea of like how I used to operate. And this book took me 2 years to write. It is a very honest um, reflection of my life, of the trauma that I went through as a child of a single mother who battled her own demons from her own traumatic childhood. She was an alcoholic and extremely abusive in our house. And at the age of 12, I was actually removed by Child Protective Services due to neglect, and went into the foster care system until I was 18. And then magically graduated as a very equipped adult, not. And so basically went into college, knew I had to, excel at all the things and be perfect in order to be acceptable, and literally tried to outwork and out numb the pain that I had, just thinking it would just one day go away. And instead, it showed up in a very emotionally chaotic marriage. And it showed up in self worth, and it showed up in living a life of just struggling in silence and really handling a lot of shame alone. And it wasn't until I was living overseas and I was trying to get my migraines resolved after living with them since I was 7. So this was a lifelong journey for me. And I'll never forget, the neurologist asked me, "So tell me about your childhood." And I told her that, well, my migraine started at the age of 7. And she asked me if there was anything traumatic that happened. And I had never told anyone that my mom had shot me with a gun at the age of 7. And I'll never forget, she looked at me and she said, "Francesca, for someone like you that has undergone so much trauma, it is ingrained in your DNA. And it would take substantial amount of work to heal that in order to release yourself from these migraines." And when I was writing this book, I actually was plagued for migraines for almost an entire summer, working through it all. Because as you're writing the book, you are trying to revisit, not relive. It is a very delicate dance. And I'm so grateful for the editor that I had, because I'm so incredibly proud of the story. And when it was published, it was a whole nother set of fears of having my life now out there for the public to read. But it tackles things like sexual transmitted diseases. It tackles things like molestation. It tackles things like, physical abuse, and how it later on will come up in our adulthood when we think that we can out earn it, outperform it, outwork it. And it's because trauma loves to leave its mark. And so it really has become my business card, if you will, that my mission is to help, especially women, because we carry so much generational trauma. It's not to say that men don't, but especially women. If you think about the way that your grandmother had to song and dance her way through life, or your great grandmother, or even your mother. I mean, we've all had our own struggles, but really we're in the first time in our entire lineage that women can break this cycle. And when we heal our unresolved childhood trauma, we really do get to create an even more beautiful life for ourselves, full of genuine connection, full of self-love, and just the belief that our next legacy gets to inherit this world healthier than we did. And again, it starts with us going first. So this book was 2 years. I'm very proud of it. It is my story, and I'm very excited for whoever feels they're called to read it. It was my hope that you will find your own vulnerability in your life when you connect with my vulnerability.
You know, uh, first of all, congratulations, because 2 years is actually the average is around 5 years for somebody to actually write a book of this depth. So that is amazing. And um, it's not easy. It's not easy. I have personally tried to go down that journey and have been unable to get through it. It's
Yeah.
and like you said, I have, and I'm going to be 20 years your senior, and I had copious amounts of counseling around my childhood and things like that. But I still have this piece, and somebody's like, "Well, you're still living in a triggered state," and I get it. I get it. Um, but I still have this piece that's like, you know what? I don't this isn't the right fit for me. I'm not so I'm so grateful to women like you who can do this, because I'd rather be behind the camera documenting the stories than standing on a stage sharing my story. And that's and it's okay to do to s- to allow others to lead, like you said
Mhm.
earlier, right? Because I may or may not ever be in a space where I could go onto a TEDx stage and speak to this, because I love the power of marketing. And that's really where I love to share, and story development and show creation. That's where, so instead of, you know, allow having somebody like you pick up the gauntlet and say, okay, we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk real, you know,
We're gonna make it
really does.
sexy.
Because unfortunately, these life scenarios did not stop because I survived,
Yeah.
and they will not stop. Here's the reality. Unfortunately, these things continue to happen. They will continue to happen. We cannot change human behavior overnight, which means it is generational. It goes next generation, and maybe it changes a little, but there's still issues within it. And this is what I was saying earlier. You may look around because you are now in the right space. It's like, what is that called? You're here. Uh, what is it called? Folks, I'm typing this in. What is it called? Because I know the term. When I have something and I see everyone else, and everyone seems to have it. And you're in Germany. This is from a German. Um, it's called the Bader Menhoff phenomenon. And this is what's fascinating. And I hear this from people going, I don't know if I should do this because I see everybody's doing this. The Meinhof, and you're in Germany, so you probably will know how to pronounce that better. Refers to the false impression that something happens more frequently than it actually does. Right. So we get in a space where we're getting healthier, we're moving forward, and everybody around us, we're starting to align ourselves with people who are healthier and moving forward. And then we go, and then that gremlin in the back comes in and says, well, everybody else is doing it. Why would you do it? Right. But the reality is, everybody's not doing it. You have surrounded yourself with the right sphere. There are still thousands of people who need to learn from you, be it a floral arrangement, being, speaking about, I had somebody speak the other day, and I thought this was crazy. It's like, man, we could speak on anything and learn everything. Um, Documentation processes for success. How do you document everything on a continual basis until you're ready to make a jump for the next? So if you're working in a job, document the fact that you sourced a new coffee for the office, and this is now, it was very interesting. But there's experts in everything, and if you are an expert, find the courage to speak up, because there are people who are looking for leadership.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. I am blown away by this conversation. I am blown away by you, Franceska. I
Thank you.
really, really appreciate what you're bringing to the table. So where can we find your book and get your book?
On Amazon. So as of this summer, we will be in bookstores. But for right now, if you can go on Amazon, we'll make sure that it's in the links for you. And the book is called Surthriving. You can get it on Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, Amazon, and it is. I have heard a page turner. So majority of readers have informed me that they read this in 1 to 2 days. So I hear that it's a good
Wow.
book.
Wow. That's incredible. And I love the name because surviving and thriving. So it is fascinating because I actually have always said I'm a thriver, not a survivor.
Yeah.
And because I'm constantly pushing my life, because I know the legacy I'm leaving behind.
Hmm.
Right. And I understand that whole having to trim out people out of your life who are not going to be part of that journey forward.
Yeah.
And that's because they need to work on things, right? That's because, but I don't have time or energy. If I'm saying you need to do this, and they're never going to do it, folks. If you tell them you need to do this, they're not going to do it. But, they have to find it on their own. Then I'm taking away valuable time that I could be doing something, right? Does that make sense? Is that?
Yeah. I mean, you really have to. We were not taught this as women. So, in our quote unquote defense, we were taught how to be nice. We were taught how to keep the peace. We were taught how to be palatable. We were taught how to be friendly and pretty and
Sit
sociable
up,
and laugh.
be ladylike.
Yeah. Be
Yeah.
fun. Like, why aren't you smiling? You would never tell a man that. And we were never taught to have boundaries. We were never taught to honor our space. We were never taught to be proud of our bodies. We were never taught that we could really do anything in this life. It was always as long as. And for me, this book really, I know why it had to happen. And one of the benefits of the book is it really allowed me to see which people were adding value to my life, which people were serving me, and not in a egotistical way, but in a, do you love me for me? Do you actually care about my well-being? Do you care about my relationship? Like, do you care about my integrity? And the people that you find will fall away were people that needed to go a long time ago. We just weren't taught to stand up for our boundaries, even if that was energetically. And probably the last year of the book, but also like right when the book published, I had so many family members come out of the woodworks, and I just started taking everyone's all access pass away. It's like, you don't get to have access to me. It is a privilege to be in my life. It is a privilege to know me, to sit at a table with me. And if we could teach our daughters this queen energy, imagine what kind of life they will have compared to the life that we are now rebuilding from the foundation we were given to be nice and to be pretty and to be likable.
Sit up, Kimberly Joe. Sit up straight. Be ladylike. Be polite. Yes. You are awesome. You are awesome. Okay. So where can all the people who get inspired by you find you, follow you, reach out to you?
Come and hang out on Instagram. I'm on Instagram every single day and my stories. Come see a little bit behind my life. I love connecting there, even if you just want to tap in every day for words of wisdom like this or encouragement. I also have a free channel there where I call them I think I call them like daily reminders. They're definitely not daily, but you can get in there and binge so much more like conversations that we've had today. So many people feel seen and heard and appreciated and loved in my world. The best place to start is just come and say hi on Instagram. So that's Instagram.com/Franceska.McCaughan. You can find the link in the show notes. I am aware that my name is 18 letters long, so we'll make it easy on you.
I always ask because I know life throws curveballs and some days are harder than others. So I always ask our guest, or my guest, I'm speaking in the plural, me and my worms. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. I always ask, what is a quote you live by and why? And the reason we
Hmm.
do this on the show is that if you, the listener, are having a challenge finding something today, grab Franceska's quote and she's going to tell you why it will work. Okay.
So, a quote that I live by is the beauty of being an adult is that you get to choose. And again, going back, especially as little girls, we were never taught the power of decision making. We were taught to look at what other people were doing. We were taught to, follow some sort of hypothetical ladder to climb, especially if it involved marriage, especially if it involved children, especially if it involved an education or a corporate career. We were never empowered to trust or listen to our gut or our intuition. And as a child, especially a child that has gone through childhood trauma, we did not choose that. We could not escape from that. In fact, a lot of times we were silenced and we thought that one day it would go away, and we didn't get the opportunity to choose anything. In fact, a lot of times we were gaslit that it even happened in the first place. And so, no matter what is going on in your life, the only person that gets to choose how you live your life as an adult is you. And that is the beauty of being an adult, because there was a time in your life that you did not have that luxury. And it is a luxury to be able to choose how you get to co create your life, because you have this one life. And you can choose to have a plot twist any second of the day. You're doing something you hate, plot twist, you don't do it anymore. Plot twist, you send the email. Plot twist, you quit the job. Like, it gets to be fun because you get to choose. And that is the beauty of being an adult.
Oh, I clicked the wrong button. I am plot twist. You have changed for me today. Thank you. Like, you are truly, truly an amazing woman and
Thank you.
here for a purpose. You know what, folks? Do reach out to Franceska, an amazing woman. And plot twist, give yourself the choice, because I promise you, in my heart of hearts, you are worth it. Even if today you're triggered or activated because you're still responding to external and you're not able to figure out how to take control, you are worth it. You are worth being seen, heard, and valued. I see you.
Mm.
I value you. Thank you, Franceska. You're just an absolute rock star.
My pleasure. And anyone that's coming to connect on Instagram, I do have a free masterclass. It's called Illuminated Self. And if you loved today's chat, you're going to love this masterclass, because it is all about really determining what your values are, how to value them, defining your life's mission, and determining how to build your dream life. So it's called Illuminated Self. It's who were you before you were told who to be. And even if you just take away this one free class from today's training, or from today's podcast, I know that you're going to really find a new level of empowerment that you might have been looking for up until now.
Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. All right, folks. Until next time, jump over to Instagram, grab that training, engage. And like I said, you are more than worth it. You are amazing. Thank you for joining us here today at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I'd love to invite you to our resilient community at resilientgift.com. That's resilientgift.com, and we'll send you our magazine and tickets for upcoming events and all sorts of cool things we do here. So be sure to keep watching. And you know what? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know that sharing is caring.